For a lighter, so give me a oh wait, I've got it. No worries, no worries. Welcome to the show. I'm GC This is the fucking book club, and that is you. I'm pointing at the fucking webcam and I'm not even on screen. There we are. There we are. Little bit of a room change, kind of. I might actually switch it a bit more, but maybe I'll leave that as a Christmas something or other. I don't know. Yeah, The Librarianist by Patrick deWitt. In a nutshell, it was a bit mediocre overall. It was fine, and I still think deWitt is actually a very good writer. He's his formulation of sentences, his witticisms, you know, if nominative determinism is anything, it is clearly in his name. He's a very witty man. The humour actually in parts of it was actually very good, and I enjoyed the first two sections, I think it was, and then we got to a section which I loathed. I'll get into that, but I was actually going to review it by its segmentation because I couldn't really understand why he did that or what it was trying to say overall. So I'll speak about, yeah. So from best-selling and award-winning author deWitt comes the story of Bob Comet, a man who has lived his life through and for literature, unaware that his own experience is a poignant and effective narrative in itself. That's nicely worded. Bob Comet is a retired librarian passing his solitary days surrounded by books and small comforts in a mint-coloured house in Portland, Oregon. One morning on his daily walk he encounters a confused elderly woman lost in the market and returns her to the senior centre that is her home. Hoping to fill the void he's known since retiring, he begins volunteering at the very centre. Here, as a community of strange peers gathers around Bob, and following a happenstance brush with a painful complication from his past, the clue is in the sentence that just came before that one, the events of his life and the details of his character are revealed. Behind Bob Comet's straight man facade is the story of an unhappy child's runaway adventure during the last days of the Second World War. Yeah, we'll get to that. A true love won and stolen away, of the purpose and pride found in the librarian's vocation, and of the pleasures of a life lived to the side of the masses. Bob's experiences are imbued with melancholy, but also a bright, sustained comedy. He has a talent for locating bizarre and outsized players to welcome onto the stage of his life. With his inimitable verve, skewed humour and compassion for the outcast, Patrick deWitt has written a wide-ranging and ambitious document of the introvert's condition. The Librarianist celebrates the extraordinary in the so-called ordinary life and depicts beautifully the turbulence that sometimes exists beneath a surface of serenity. Well, it's a good synopsis. The synopsis is the marketing value of the synopsis is very good. I'm going to be a bit harsh on this probably. But let me try and locate just to I could just look at this on my phone in fairness. Yeah, I'll do that to save time. Come on. Fucking thing. Okay, yeah, so the first section is between 2005 and 2006. The second section is 1942 to 1960. The third section is 1945. And the final section is 2006. So we kind of round back to what has occurred at the beginning. I found like the reason for this was just to be a giant cock tease, to be honest. I didn't really get that. So, as the synopsis states here, the confused elderly woman turns out to be the only woman he has, well, not just married, but also fornicated with in his whole life. I mean, there's being an introvert, and then there's being a monk, you know. I didn't really get that. I would imagine from his heartbreak, because the way it ends is savage. It's the stuff, you know, manosphere incel channels are made of, basically. They're the kind of thing where a guy is deeply in love with a woman who thinks loves him back, but then betrays him to be with Ethan, who is his, well, not only best friend, but only friend. And that part of the story is actually very strong. So we get to that when we're in the 1942 to 1960, because he's kind of like, he's entering his 20s. He already knows he wants to be a librarian. He's always been a kind of introverted type. He's always loved reading in general. Like, that's all he kind of does. There's some quirky little quips here and there about like, why read when you can just live life? And then it's like his answer to that is he'd rather be reading than living life, basically. deWitt does a better job than I just did with that. There was one great part about Schadenfreude where he's talking to a fellow old man who used to also be a looker back in his day, who's actually turned into a kind of Bukowski level kind of ugly as he's aged. But yeah, they're talking about Schadenfreude, and he's describing how the word works and stuff like that. And then at the end of the piece, this Litmus, I think his name was, something like that, Litus, upon finding out that Bob has only slept with one woman, asks him something about, what's the word that describes pity, awe, and revulsion all at the same time. It's very witty from deWitt, you know, funny shit. But yeah, so we start off, and I think it's fine. Like, I'm kind of intrigued. Like, he's had this dream about this Elba hotel that he once went at. I was mildly intrigued to see where that might lead, and then he starts talking, you know, he finds this woman who later is known as Chip, and he helps her back to this volunteer centre because that's where she resides. But somehow, I don't know how he doesn't recognise that it's his fucking ex-wife. But I could kind of buy that, mainly because she was so far gone mentally that maybe, and as you know, as she's obviously aged, she probably would be around the same age as him, and he hasn't seen her for nigh on 45 years, something like that. It's been a very long time. But being the only woman he's ever been with, and the level of like heartbreak he suffered at her hand, it's, I don't know, I find that to be a little bit dubious. It's all in the eyes, isn't it? It's like I was once in a short film where it was called Shadow Walker, and I was playing an army dude, and an army dude who went AWOL, and I'd managed to get my fucking way back, and I travelled all the way from Afghanistan and somehow made it in to Cali, and then I swept across the shore, and I get on shore, and all of these circumstances happen, but my wife, or ex-wife at the time, or whatever, she doesn't recognise me straight away. And I was always like pointing this out in the script. It's like, it doesn't matter if I've like got burns or whatever, she's going to fucking recognize me. There's like a thing that you just instinctually know. He ignored me and the movie ended up sucking ass. So, yeah, make of that what you will. But yeah, there's certain lines of like believability that are just a bit much. With this one, I could give it a little bit, mainly because it had been so long and perhaps he was a little bit senile himself. It is mentioned that he feels like he's losing some grip on his capabilities and he can sense that he's deteriorating a little bit, and then yeah, it kind of documents that a fair bit, but whatever. Then my favourite section was the bit where he becomes a librarian. He meets this girl. She's got a mental father, but there's quite a lot of room for humour within that. I think sometimes the mistake deWitt might have made was to show off his writing ability and his witticisms a bit, because he includes characters who can speak very well, basically, and there's a kind of room for him to just kind of flourish and have fun. And that's all well and good, and I kind of encourage that normally, but I don't think it added much in terms of believability to the characters, especially when we get to the section where there's this whole bit about when he ran away from home, as if this is some sort of like poignant event in his life, and I suppose it is the way he's recollecting it, but I was fucking bored out of my mind reading this, if I'm honest. I was like, why is this here? I can't understand why he's put this. He's put these annoying fucking actresses in it, this thespian couple with dogs who are just irritating, and it felt like the only reason they were there was just so deWitt could kind of have some fun with like imagining this scene. And you've got World War II as a backdrop, and that ends, and as soon as World War II ends, Bob's whole reason for being there, because he starts learning the drums and he starts talking to this girl called Alice, who's a number of years older than him, but he's like 11, something like that. And then this cop just shows up and goes, "Oh, I thought I recognized you." And it's like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna have to take you back home, son. This ain't no place for you." And that's it. That's the whole reason it's in there. And I was just reading it thinking like, I was annoyed at the end of that, because I was just like, you kept cock teasing, and the part where he talks about how the marriage breaks down and how he's friends with this guy called Ethan, but Ethan is basically your modern day Don Juan. Like he's just plowing through woman after woman after woman, to the point where it's like he's even fucking the mother of the woman he gets engaged to at one point. And of course Ethan then steals his wife and breaks Bob's heart into smithereens and all this kind of stuff. And it's really well done, and it feels like there's some kind of personal thing with deWitt here. I don't know how much of it's completely made up, but it definitely was put together to such in a way where it felt very palpable and was very enjoyable to read, despite how tragic it was and harsh, and it felt real. It had an element of like Somerset Maugham kind of realism, where it just this is just life. This is the shit that happens. It's banal, it's pointless, it's beautiful, and it's tragic. All of that stuff. It was and it was especially heart-rendering to read, because you could see. I thought what he did really well was the balance between the level of guilt, both Connie, who was his wife, who is later Chip, I don't know about that name, but and Ethan, because they both act quite erratically, and it's because they feel like pieces of shit for how they feel about one another, and yet Bob's reading it, and there's one point where it's so obvious that Ethan was just there fucking his wife, because she's got this ribbon string on her wrist, and she tells Bob that she tied it on herself, and he can't sleep that night thinking about it, and then he retrieves the ribbon and tries to do it himself, and then he can't, and then he asks Connie to do it the next morning, and obviously she fails at doing this, but he never says it, but Yeah, and that's actually where it ends, I believe, roughly around that area. And then we go back further in time, and I just kept thinking, like, what? Why do I give a shit about an 11-year-old version of this dude who just decides to run away? You know, on a like at one point, I think he's made to go to a sleepover because his mother's throwing a soiree and probably wants to potentially get some dick. So she's like, "Get the fuck out of here," and he walks out of that without. I mean, it did. I suppose it did show a different time and an era because you never have kids walking around by themselves these days, but maybe back then it was a bit more the norm. And all of that, and Bob's quite independent in that regard, and the fact that he runs off, he you know, he does all right for himself, I suppose, considering it's 4 days of his life. It's kind of a non-event. And I was just thinking, why is this here? It's very disappointing because I thought it was like if you left that section out, I don't really see what you'd miss, like from the overall bigger picture. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe there was something in there that would justify why it was there, but apart from just being another anecdotal section of his life posed as something poignant and meaningful, I mean it kind of did in some ways, but it was fucking boring. And I found the two female thespians and the dude who was at the theatre or the hotel or whatever it was to be very irritating. Like annoying, like so self-important, and love the sound of their own fucking voices, and it's just like, oh Jesus, get me out of here. And then the way it ended was even more disappointing because it was like nothing, it just felt like it was totally needless. And then we finally get back to the present moment where Bob has just realised that this nutty woman is his ex-wife, and then he's like, oh, I don't want to volunteer at the shelter anymore because I don't want to see that bitch. And that's it. That was the whole reason why it was there. And I was thinking, why have you put it on this pedestal of like, this is going to be something, because you're kind of intrigued to know, like, oh, where is this going to go from here? I mean, you do get a kind of thing where Connie's son, who looks remarkably like Ethan, who he does also realise that at one point, turns up, and he does tell him, you know, who he is, and he actually knows about him because his mother would speak about him, and everyone else is dead, or like as good as, pretty much, mentally speaking. And then he moves into the very shelter that he was volunteering at. And that's it. And then we have some Halloween thing where the kids are coming in. There was one part where I thought, oh, it would be nice if it ended there, because it was a really... Let me see if I can find it. I probably won't, because the fucking piece goes on and on and on. But it was basically about life and death, and talking about, you know, you're born, you piss around for a little bit, and then you're kind of folded and flipped about in the pages of life, and then before you know it, you're back in the ground. Something like that. And I thought, oh, that would be quite a nice end. And then instead it went on for about 3 or 4 more chapters. And yeah. I realise I've just been doing most of this fucking review on that little screen. Never mind. But yeah, I mean, I'll still give deWitt his due. I think he's a very good writer in terms of sentence structure and theme and tone. The comedy in it I enjoyed the most. I found it was a bit... It was disappointing to just be a kind of throwawayable piece of American literature. It's got a lot of Americana-isms in it and stuff like that, but that was fine for me. I didn't really mind that. I thought there was a certain charm to it that was quite similar to... What's his fucking name in Coming Up for Air by George Orwell? can't remember his name right now, but he has a similar kind of thing where he's a bit of an old man. He's just won a bit of money at the pools on the football, and then he takes a trip to his hometown where he grew up, and he's kind of like shocked at how much has changed, and it's like the comedy in it's great. So and in some ways I can see similarities with deWitt because of having read The Sisters Brothers. That's like a totally different novel where you're following two brothers who are in, you know, the Wild West times of America. But I don't know, something about that novel had so much more control than this one. This one felt indulgent overall, and a little bit like deWitt was like, you know, I'm just going to tell a standard fare kind of story. I liked his main character of Bob Comet. I thought there was a charm to him. I suppose he had some similarities to a stoner kind of character, but that was mainly due to his love of literature. But I don't know, the closer I was to the end, the more I'm kind of thinking like we don't really learn much about him being a librarian overall. It's more about him just having a love of literature. But in terms of what an archivist would be doing on a day-to-day, didn't really get much information about that, or we didn't get many stories about his life as a librarian, apart from the fact that this is where he met the one woman he would be with. And the one, because the friend dies quite quick after they elope and ruin his life and all this kind of stuff. And then Bob basically spends the remainder of his life waiting for his fucking ex-wife to come back. Only, of course, she never does because she's had a kid from the other man and is busy with that. But and then we get a bit of dramatic irony because then he does meet her again, but he doesn't recognise her because she's not the same person she once was and all this kind of shit. And yeah, it was just standard fare. I mean, there might be a few other things or points to make about it, but I found it was too long. Definitely too long. Like, no, there was no reason or need for that novel to be 450 pages. Cut out that fucking section when he runs away as a kid. You lose nothing, and you get a much more condensed, enjoyable piece, which maybe you could actually, you know, expand on further in terms of like how you'd weave it together. And yeah, I'd probably be singing its praises quite a bit more because I thought the middle point of the story was actually very good, but he had to fuck around with the linearity of it all and be a bit pretentious, and it's like, yeah, I'm mostly surprised because I thought an editor would have been like, yeah, this section when he's like an 11-year-old, why why is this here? You need to justify it. I need to know for some reason. I know you got that shit about the hotel at the beginning and he's thinking about this stuff because he's an old man, but it kind of sucks, dude. I mean, talk about an anticlimax. I mean, the kid gets roped into being part of this theatre production, so he starts learning how to do drums and pissing everyone else off. And then when it comes to when he's found, because he is like a missing person at that point, the cop just tells him, oh yeah, you can go and collect your things in the hotel. There's no one there. I thought that was such a cop-out. Like, just be like, oh, I can't be bothered to deal with these goodbyes or this kind of incidents happening. I'll just make it so that no one's there because the war's just ended. So everyone's obviously off celebrating or whatever. And yeah, and then we can just get the kid home and wrap things up. And it was just like, why is this section here? Why? Just weird. I think you're the only guy in the house. It's me and you. It's the Painbow and GC book club, basically. Which is the reason, like, I'm going to take a bit of a break. Actually, I might as well mention this now. It's kind of, I'll still do a stream for Christmas, but in terms of like the book stuff, I'm going to, yeah, never mind Infinite Jest or whatever it will be next. If I do, I'll do another one, but I'll do some sort of community post, or maybe I'll do a different stream or whatever, and could decide then. But you know, I'm 15 books in now, 16 books technically, and I do want to carry on with it because I'm kind of enjoying it, and at least like me and Painbow are having some fun reading books and talking shit about them. But yeah, I get moaned at for years. Where's the book content? You haven't reviewed a book for a while. And then I do them, admittedly in a slightly different way, but basically it's the fucking same, isn't it? It's just me talking to the camera for like half an hour. And yeah, and I'm doing stuff that's like quite recent, varied, I would say. Like there's a mixture of like all different types of authors. Yeah, I don't know. Never listen to the audience. So what was it Bukowski said? Wherever the crowd goes, go the fucking opposite way, because they're always wrong. So never listen to the majority when it comes to like your own shit, because they don't know. They know not what they do. You know. Whatever. So I mean, I think Painbow, you know, you basically want a guest spot on the thing. Oh, Sin's having a little moan. Yeah, we went from reading it every 2 weeks to reading it every 3 days. It's a lot. Well, I mean, there's one exception. And that was this. And you still had a week to read it, technically speaking. The only reason it was seemingly a few days was because you probably didn't watch the one about Rat, I guess, because that's the one we decided to read this. And then I did The Woman in the Dunes because I said I would, yeah, do it. I thought Alice was going to have a go with him because she was clearly horny as fuck, and I was like, is she going to be a secret pedo and like basically molest him? Is this why he's so weird with women and stuff? Because to be honest as well, the other thing that I didn't find that believable, unless they really did just get along, Ethan and Connie, his first and only wife and the only woman he ever sleeps with. Okay, fine. I you know, it takes all sorts and all of that, but Ethan was basically ploughing, like he was a fucking Russell Brand of his times, basically. And it sounded like he could have got any woman he wanted. And I'm guessing Connie was, you know, a 6 or a 7, maybe. But maybe that would be pushing it. Like, I think she was pretty normal. And I just found that a bit like, maybe she was just so over the moon that she got chatted that she didn't care if he was going to be fucking the neighbours and having affairs and whatnot. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, he mentions it a bit at the beginning because when he first is at the volunteer centre, he reads The Black Cat to the people, and they are disgusted when, yeah, the main character starts doing what he does to the cat, basically. And then I think he reads some Gogol, sorry. And he actually has a whole thing about Russian literature, but that's very short-lived because no one gives a fuck. So yeah, he gives up on that idea pretty quick and just becomes a normal volunteer of like coming there just to keep people company. I don't know. I mean, he's kind of one of those every man characters who is kind of used as a conduit for the other characters to come alive. From Ethan to Connie to the wheelchair bound dude at the volunteer centre. Like, they just use him to talk about their much more interesting lives. Whereas, and I'm not trying to shit on what Bob Commit's life was like. I think he had lived a normal, standard life, you know. But it was other people's contributions that made the novel more intriguing. Whereas he apparently was totally content to spend the majority of his life alone in a room reading a book. But yeah, anything outside of that, he kind of just, yeah, he'd go along with it. I think him and Connie go hiking at one point, but for some reason Bob stupidly invites Ethan to come along, which I don't really get. He was basically asking for them to like fornicate at one point, but yeah, I don't want to shit on that section because I think that part was easily the strongest, and I thought it was very well put together. And though difficult to read, still enjoyable because of like how awkward it felt to read it, knowing like what was to come as it went along. But that's the only time I thought the linear structure worked, because the other times it was just like, why are we going back to when he was a kid, for one thing? I mean, unless he does, as Painbow and I have said, get fucking molested or get his ass handed to him in some sort of, like, there needs to be something. If it's like an incident of his life where he looks back on it as a kind of turning point or a learning curve or whatever it is, it's like he did fucking nothing. All he did was get on a train and he hung out with some failed fucking wannabe Amdram people for a few days, and that was it. That's all that fucking happened. And then deWitt just exploits World War II to get poignancy out of his second act. It was shit. Yeah, I mean, I'd like what Sin's saying here. We can have a discussion about it. Hey, if two's company, three's a crowd, then seven is, you know, it's a lot more than what a stand-up comedian will get at an open mic. So suck my dick. But you know, it's all an experiment. Maybe I was better off with Cope and Seeth, because that was getting dick numbers as well. But you ask people to read a book, I don't know. I mean, maybe it does expose something about the times we're in. I mean, reading's fucking dead. Let's face it. I mean, there's a few of us still around, but we're fooling no one. Like, most people aren't doing it in general. And what I see going on with publishing, and how the major publishers are already co-opting AI. So it's over, basically. I kind of actually feel, I mean, everything ends at some point. Maybe the whole thing about authors and whatnot is dead in the water. I mean, if you look at, say, even movies nowadays, most of the biggest ones are just rehashes of shit either made before or alternate versions of it and things like that. Like, it's done, you know. Which maybe is more, all the more reason to do a book club in a kind of defiant sense. But defiance is bad for you mentally. Trust me. I've been defiant most of my life, and it doesn't do me any fucking good. So, because no one gives a shit about defiance unless you fucking make it. Unless you somehow break out with some overrated novel or movie or album or whatever it might be. People ain't gonna listen to you. They only listen when the status quo tells them that they should listen, which right now is computer games and porn and social media in general. Nonsense, basically. It's like, well, I mean, Patrick sent me this thing about, you know, there's college graduates and whatnot who were complaining about having to read a book. So it's not a fucking surprise that no one's coming on for a stream about it, when their own fucking degrees that they're paying for, they still can't and don't even know, or seemingly aren't even capable of actually getting through a book, when the very subject they're studying is something like literature. So it's like, I mean, I don't know how we got to this stage. Probably through panderization. Like, if you cater to a child's needs too much, the irony is a child needs to be told no. You know, it's like, you can't moan if you have to read when you're studying fucking academe, for one thing, but you need to enforce some sort of ground rules, some discipline, and a child actually wants that, because it shows that you are concerned and protective of their well-being. If you just go, oh, you want to be a different gender, we can do that, no problem. You know, oh, you don't feel safe, we can disinvite the talker. We're in a stage of complete and utter, never mind retardation, it's like Neanderthalization. You know, it's like going back to a point where it's like almost trying to reverse our psychology to a point where it's like, so it can start again almost. I don't know. Very, very weird. And then you've got fucking stupid AI in the background slowly just taking the credit for everything. Which there's actually companies out there who are basically just stealing everything that was made by far greater minds of the past and throwing it back up online everywhere in the form of art, books, music. And that's going to be the thing. Like, in what fucking world did people need AI to replace art? It's like, that's the one area it should have been told, no, fuck off. We don't need that. We clearly don't need that. That's what people live for. Like, fuck right off with that bullshit. And yet it's because it's a free market. If you can sell fucking used condoms and farts in a jar, it's all good, baby. You know, go for it. You know, it's no wonder people can't fucking finish a book. Because what's the point? Yeah, why bother? I think this might have turned into a cope and seethe. I apologise. Yeah, The Librarianist, not great. 3 stars. 3 generous stars, I would say, as well. The 3 stars mainly for his writing ability. Patrick deWitt is a fucking good writer. I would still read another of his books. I'm a little bit disappointed that it's been this one, but The Sisters Brothers is great. He's clearly got a very meticulous mind when it comes to the orchestration of his pieces. And I like the fact that he does take it to some pretty grim places at times, and he's got a good way of fucking with you emotionally. It's a shame he isn't like even more depressing. I think he could really push it and be like, instead of writing this kind of run of the mill, middle of the road type story, I'd prefer him to go a bit grimmer, to be honest. But I do also appreciate how varied his books seem to be, having read 2 now. So, you know, whatever. I'm with Paintball on this. I do think it will make little difference in the grand scheme of things overall. Because, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, Sin. You know, I'm not trying to shit on that. But it doesn't seem to matter if I give someone a week, 2 weeks. The problem is if you... People who join book clubs are normally middle-aged women with nothing better to do. Or, you know, lost souls in general. Like, you're not going to get a bunch of dudes. I mean, so you might do in very, like, if we were reading certain types of books and sticking to that, it's possible. But in general, people don't like being told to read a book. It reminds them too much of school, for one thing. It's like that thing, it's like that part of the brain's like, oh really? You want me to read 300 pages? But I don't even fancy reading that. No. It takes a different mindset to do this kind of thing, because if people who are paying 30 grand a year to go to uni can't be asked to do it, then why would the average person pissing about on YouTube want to do that? You know, it takes you have to actually love reading. People don't love reading. They love people thinking that they love reading. That's what they're enamored by. They want to be seen as bookworms, but they don't actually want to do the fucking reading that is required to be a bookworm. See what I'm saying? It's I think I'm going insane. Not for the first time, at least. So there's that. I don't know, maybe his other books do suck. You know. But I think for maybe he gives me hope, like a false cope, because he's a white man, you know, doing quite well in this age, which is very rare. I don't know. But that's probably down to nepotism or something. There's got to be some reason. But yeah, whatever. Yeah, he's a good writer. I don't think it's silly to say that or believe it or whatever. But whatever. Give me a minute. I need a piss, and then we can discuss the Christmas stream. So the review's over. I'll take the thing. Yeah, it's all right. I mean, I can't recommend it that much. I have to admit, I was losing focus by that third section, mainly because I was just like, there is a little bit of a Salinger in him. I got that kind of Frankie and Zooey vibe at times, especially when the dialogue went a bit, or took centre stage. Probably because they were actors, but yeah, there's definitely a slight influence there, I would argue. I think he puts his thumb on the pulse of similar, you know, issues when it comes to, I don't know, I suppose matrimonial issues or qualms or whatever you want to call it. So, and again, family kind of dynamics, because Bob Commit's mother, you know, loved him but didn't understand him because he was a little freak. And really, I mean, he's kind of like he's an incel, pretty much, but a nice one, you know, one who's, well, if I envision him, I kind of imagine him to be a little bit porky, friendly though, and kind of jovial, reserved, but when kind of one of those people that you're not sure about at first, but once you actually speak to them a bit, you kind of realize there's a well of knowledge in them, and they're quite bright. But there's also something a bit odd because they don't really care either way about much at all, I suppose. And their love of reading is more to do with their disposition and demeanour than it is to do with reading itself. Yeah, I don't know. But it wasn't bad. It felt like a kind of stopgap type of book overall, which was disappointing to me because it's too many books. So anyone I pick up, I want it to kick me in the balls. But this one just lightly stroked them for too long and didn't really even attempt to get me off, which is probably good reason to give it 0 star. Yeah, I'll be back in a sec. James, or yourself, mate, or yourself. I'm slightly suspicious of writers whose books are always turned into films. It suggests a very basic and safe writing style, which this book was. I mean, it sounds like a nonsense comment, but I kind of know what you mean. But then again, I think sometimes it's the hype surrounding the writer. Look at Ottessa Moschwe, for instance. I mean, the only reason Eileen was turned into a film is because of the success of her books. Eileen is shit. It's a terrible book. Really bad. Really. Don't give me that postmodern feminist bollocks about, she's a reverse femme fatale. No, she's a cunt. That was it. That was that's how you can say you can take any trope and be like, yeah, I'm definitely, I'm being really meta about this and flipping the script and telling it from a female perspective instead. It's like, no, we already know the female perspective because these types of women exist and have done throughout fucking time immemorial. Adam and Eve, hello? Come on. Oh, is it really? Is it actually? I was quite surprised by that. The Sisters Brothers was a film, but I thought it was pretty dull, to be honest. It's all right. I mean, I might have to re-watch it to really give a solid opinion on it, but I didn't. I enjoyed the book a lot more, like a lot more. So. Make of that what you will. It is a couch, yeah. I've been trying to rearrange the room. I don't really know why I do this. It's definitely become a habit of mine where I seem to think like, oh, if I move shit around, it will give my brain a sense of being somewhere new, so it will feel reinvigorated and inspired, and it doesn't. It does fucking nothing. All it does is like make me think, oh, I can't put my feet up like I used to because I've moved shit. Something like that. Such is the peril of being fucking poor, I think, is all I've learned from that. Oh, really? So all of his books are being made into flicks, are they? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if this one was. I think they would definitely axe that shit about him being a kid. But the part about his tragic marriage, I mean, that could make a movie easily. I mean, there is something to his style that's somewhat cinematic. I don't think that's a bad thing, but if it is done with the possibility of it being a film in mind, then I think that's kind of a bad faith type of position to take. But I mean, I'm sure he doesn't give a fuck when he's getting those sweet royalties from it. Plus, a lot of the time, if you've written, you're under no obligation to write the screenplay or anything like that. You can just go, yeah, fine, you can do it, pay me. People should be making movies out of my shit, but or at least like not even just mine, but something a bit fresh. You can guarantee that Han Kang will have some films coming out. I mean, I think The Vegetarian was a film already. So. Yeah, I mean, there probably isn't even that much money in it these days as well. I mean, it really depends on what label is wanting to put it out and what type of royalties you'll get from it. Would it be down to distribution or streaming rights or whatever? And there's no money in DVDs and shit anymore, so I guess it's a one-off payment, but I don't know. I think Keanu Reeves managed to haggle like 2 or 3% of all of the takings for The Matrix 2, which is a very shrewd move because he basically made him like beyond fucking imaginability kind of rich, and that was only with like 3 or 4%. So, but if he took just a one-off check, he would have probably still made 20 million, but he made a lot more doing that. I called you chin balls. Chin balls. Did I? Are you sure? I don't think chin balls is in my vocabulary. Mr. Antinatalist. Is that your channel? I'm so naturally distrusting, I always think someone's fucking with me. What's your channel called? Maybe it's that. I mean, I've done too many reactions, so I don't fucking remember. Let's have a look. Oh no, there you are, there you are. Oh, yeah. How you doing? I was going to email you. You've changed it from like being a Chelsea fan to being a realist, and now you're an antinatalist. You're going through the same arc as myself. Let me. I need to read this. Sorry if this exposes. Yeah, the realist rant man. How's it going? Oh yeah, chin balls because of the pubic hair on the. Sorry. You're a cool guy. You're a cool guy. But yeah, the pubic hair's got to go, my man. It's not doing you any favours. I mean, if you're an antinatalist, I guess you're not interested in getting laid, so maybe you should keep it. But I'm digging the shorter hair. I think it suits you. But I am only saying that because I'm the only man who should have long hair. Everyone else should do one, with the exception of Johnny Depp. Do you want to come on? Do you want to be on a guest? Fucking hell, I'm drunk. Do you want to be a guest on the show? I mean, it probably won't do you any favours these days, but I think we'd have a laugh. So yeah, look, this is the dude. I am the real Mr. Antinatalist, not the fake Mr. Antinatalist that says the same thing on repeat and that doesn't shower for weeks and only cleans his armpits with tissues. The fake Mr. Antinatalist also blocks people as he's insecure about his micropenis. Also, Mr. Antinatalist invited a 13-year-old girl into his Discord and flirted with her as he's a nonce. Fair enough. Did you give up on football? I don't blame you. Oh, you don't have that old name anymore. You shaved it off. Yeah, good thinking. How old are you? Out of interest. I mean, you can buy oils and shit that apparently help. Because I've got a bit of a patchier beard around here. But yeah, it's all down to genetics, isn't it? Really. So unless you get a tattoo or fucking put some glue on your face and some bitch's pubes, you're not going to. Oh yeah, I was going to ask where are you located? Not that I'm not going to hunt you down, but I detected a similar accent to my own, so maybe wonder. But I mean, if you're an antinatalist, I can recommend. Have you read The Conspiracy Against the Human Race? Or Better to Have Never Been? I've got loads of those types of books. The Conspiracy Against the Human Race, I think you'd love. But I would say that, in fairness. What else would be good? I think Straw Dogs would be good as well. I like that. Maybe some Michelle Welbeck. You're 22. Ah, okay, so the beard will probably blossom at some point. Maybe, I don't know. I feel bad that you watched that. Cause no, I remember I was actually going to email you, but you didn't have an email on your account, and I don't know. I just couldn't find a way to get in contact. So, I gave up on the idea basically. But it seems like I could. No, see, your email address still isn't on your about page. So, oh, you are reading some Benatar. Apologies. That book is fucking boring. I wouldn't bother. I mean, I don't disagree with his position, but it's not exactly a thrilling read, is it? Let's face it. It's fucking boring as shit. But I think the last thing I saw of yours was that you were learning to drive, I think. Something like that. How'd that go? Probably a dangerous thing to do for a anti-natalist. Yeah, I mean, I've got to agree here. I don't always agree with this dude, but we're apparently we're near enough the same person. Yeah, it's a phase. I'd let it go. You need pussy in your life, my man. The antenatal position might get you a few, gothic tattooed daddy issue bitches, but it's not a good long term position to take, if you know what I mean. But if you're skint in fucking London, you're fucked anyway, so you got to hedge your bets, I suppose. Is Quran antenatal? I guess, yeah, probably. How would one be a guest on your show? Who the fuck are you? Grape flavoured custard. No, I use Ecamm. It probably cost me money to interview anyone at the moment, but yeah, it's a paid thing. I don't really know why I use it, but it's pretty good because I can do, I don't know, dumb shit like this, where I can use graphics and stuff like that. That's probably the only benefit to using it. And my audience couldn't give a fucking lick, two shits about it, so. But I like it, so, and yeah, I can add in GIFs and shit like that. But yeah, I mean, I could basically I'll just send you a link to a URL, and it will pop up in a browser, and you're on the show. Basically, that's it. It's pretty easy. It cost me money. If you want to pay for it, that would be better. The king of anti-natalists. don't know. I was trying to think of a more based example, but we're already in an anti-natalist kind of age anyway, really. You know, I mean, when you look at population decline and whatnot, and the selfishness of most people these days, you can argue having children is selfish in of itself, of course, fine, whatever. But yeah, this individualism obsession has created, you know, never mind Japan and hikikomori, it's worldwide, you know. So there's most countries are begging for their citizens to start fucking and breeding, and are even rewarding them for it. The problem is as a dude, you got no benefit these days. I mean, even if you don't want anything to do with them, you're going to have to pay out of pocket. The best way to breed as a man these days is to just keep hopping from country to country. But it's not even just that. I mean, there's no moral urgency, I suppose. There's no reason for you to do it, because we live in a very nihilistic time. Regardless of like the types of content you might consume and whatnot, perhaps it's rampant accelerationism. But it seems to me that neoliberalism adopts most of the sides of, or the negative aspects of nihilism, and has just made it completely dog eat dog. Everything's about image, status, influence, and social media is just the tabloid mentality of our times, where it doesn't matter if you're a fucking idiot, if you've got a good pair of tits or whatever, and you hit a market at the right time, you can make bank. I mean, I keep getting vids of that fucking whore who slept with 100 dudes in a day, and then she made a documentary about how it upset her or something, and you just think, what society are we in where a woman will get famous because she starts advertising her pussy, saying like, come along, come and fuck me, you can be guy number 38 if you want, 69 is still up for grabs. During, you know, that period, I kept thinking like, did any dudes go for the brown hole? They must have done, surely. It must have been like, I kind of this is why I don't make money on this site, but I imagine like, if you were that woman and you were like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fuck 100 dudes in 24 hours. That is the whole thing. 100 dudes in 24 hours. That's why you have anti-natalists. Like, Jesus Christ. And then, but I kept thinking, like, imagine if the fucking first dude, you know, and he was just a fucking salamander destroyer, and he just opened that bitch, opened her up, split her in two, ripped her a new one, and then every other dude who came in was just like, oh, getting nothing out of this, and she's just like counting the clock. It's like, your 3 minutes are almost done, mate, come on. And then and then you got other dudes trying to slip it in the butthole, because it's like, well, that's just clearly used, but that butthole's just sitting there begging. and then the whole thing always feels like completely orchestrated. Like, she sets it up. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to fuck 100 dudes in 24 hours. And then you get documentary makers like emailing saying, oh, you want to talk about your experience? And then she starts crying. Yeah, I don't know why I did this. What am I supposed to think about this? Am I supposed to care? It's like, there's hookers in Amsterdam right now, fucking probably that many dudes a day. They're not getting documentaries. Nor are they asking for sympathy. And yet, it's like that Frankie Boyle joke I think he did a while back about Americans who went to Vietnam and then they came back and started making movies because it upset them, because killing the yellow man made them sad. It's like, oh yeah, getting fucking ran through in 24 hours affected you emotionally. So yeah, you probably should have been just... She might as well be on heroin. Like, I actually think as well, it would be more ethical to watch somebody commit suicide than it would be to engage with that, you know. To actually be not only a supporter of it, but if I, as a guy, if I was friends with somebody who actually, you know, signed up for that, I would never speak to that dude again. I'd be like, you are beyond fucking retribution, my friend. You're cooked. Unless maybe you were number one. You were the first dude to... I mean, she probably already fucked about 1,000 anyway, so it's like, what difference does it make, I suppose? Yeah, I saw the feminists claiming she was a victim. It's like Mia Khalifa shit, that is. It's like, oh, don't think I'm only famous because I was in the porn industry. It's like, yeah, sure, okay, let's listen to your opinions on things. Why should you stop being anti-natalist? Well, I mean, that could be the discussion of the show if you want. I share my email, I think, on this one, but also on my main channel. So yeah, send me an email if you want. I won't share yours, it's all good. And yeah, we can have a little... I mean, I'll probably be getting drunk and just having a bit of a laugh. I'm not going to change your life, mate, but I have read a lot of anti-natal shit. I've written quite a lot of it as well, to be honest, but I don't really see a point in being one, mainly because being alive is the only experience that you can relate to. So to be anti the non-existent is just wishing to die overall. I mean, I know I'm simplifying it quite a lot, but it's also, you can only really wish to die whilst you're alive, so it's a luxurious type of viewpoint. Schopenhauer demonstrates this far better than me, but when he's talking about suicide, it's almost like to commit suicide is more life affirming than it is negating. And the reason for that is because, well, he says it a lot better than me, as I just said, but yeah, it's an action that you can take whilst you are animate, basically. So to idolize the inanimate, or beyond that, the non-existent, is appealing. I get it. Like, there is a, you know, allure to the void and all of that kind of stuff, but it's still from the position of being alive, you know. And really, I don't blame anyone for being anti-natalist or whatever, but it's really, I just don't, it's a dead end, let's say, you know, to be blunt about it. It's like, it's going nowhere. I don't really see how it can be something where you're going to get more out of this prison-esque existence, you know. Do other shit, basically. That's fine. Yeah, 12 minutes, all good. I mean, we might be watching the Critical Drinkers film, which is 40 minutes, but I'm just going to piss myself laughing throughout the whole thing, I would imagine. Are you a MGTOW? I don't think a man can ever not really care about getting laid. Let's be frank. you know. It's just built in you. Sadly, I do think trying to get laid these days is more aggro than it's worth. That's for sure. I mean, I'm in a lucky position myself, but yeah, to be your age in this time. If you're MGTOW, then have you started hitting the gym? Have you taken a shower, bro? Who hurt you? Sorry, I'm actually quite chuffed you're on the stream, so don't take my bullshit personally. Are you a vegan as well then? It's no wonder you're depressed if you're a vegan, man. I do like your live stream titles. I'll go through the catalogue. What's the point in life? Life is bad. I'm done with life. Hell is other people. Sartre, nice. Life is boring. The meaning of life is boredom. Humans make life more complicated. That's fucking undoubtedly true. Good guys finish last. Yeah, bit of a cliche, but true. Living the tent life, or living that tent life. The thing is, a lot of your vids, you're filming it from an angle that makes you focus on the chin balls. That's why I fucking mentioned it. You're like your angle's here. It's like you're trying to teabag your audience. You don't really want to do that. You got to have a fucking Buzz Lightyear chin to get away with that kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? Upright. You know, look a bitch in the eye. I'm sorry, aren't you a married man? How the fuck would you know? Well, I mean, I would agree that getting laid is easy if you're of a certain look. But it's not even the getting laid that's the difficult part necessarily. It's more if you want something more than that, which I think everyone really does. I mean, you know, we all fantasize about getting laid. I mean, there's a reason porn is addictive. It's because, yeah, it's good to have someone to fuck. But really, people want connection, interaction, intimacy. All of these things that people are incapable of nowadays because we're told to be invulnerable. Basically, we're not really allowed to be human anymore. That's what social media has done, or the internet in general. Like, it's created this you go back to Guy Debord, you know, the society of the spectacle. Now we're in the spectacle within the spectacle. You know, everything you see online, it's like these days I'm always questioning, like, is this even real? Like, is this just a AI voice or a bot? Like, who put this together? Are they genuine, or are they just doing it for shits and clicks? You know, and you can't have in-depth conversation. I mean, that's why I found always these debate bros to be hilarious, or reaction types. I mean, I know I've done them myself, but I like to think that I do them with a pinch of salt, you know, because it's like, clearly you can't have a debate when one person's replying 6 months after somebody's done something. I mean, there's not even, you know, in your biology you exchange information without saying a fucking word. But if you're only doing it via pixels, you're just getting nowhere all the time. It's just that's why everything's so repetitive online. People have to keep releasing the same shit, talking about the same bollocks, because it cartoonifies the human experience basically. And as soon as you say something outside of that, of your normal subject matter, then people are like, oh, I don't understand. Like, this guy used to just talk about books, but now he's talking about fucking male psychology. As if it's so far removed, you know, but okay, but this is fine. I mean, I'm familiar with both, and yeah, I agree. Piece of piss. In that time, things have changed, my friend. For one thing, OK Cupid and Plenty of Fish is full of the most horrendous women around. That's where the, you know, the single mothers wanting you to commit when she's already got 5 kids by 5 other men. That's where they lurk, you know. You ain't going to get. I mean, if you're talking in terms of just getting laid, sure, I would say yeah, it's probably quite easy. But just getting laid is shit. Like, you know, especially if you can only get the fucking sub 5 females to get on board. And I would argue that's probably changed even more so, you know. I don't know, I haven't really looked into that for a while, but yeah, it's not worth the aggro or the effort. Yeah, social media has fucked probably everything overall. I mean, I think the problem is like a lot of things, or technological progress as it's called, it happens, but there's no consideration as to what impact it might have. There's no fucking way social media should have been allowed to just be like, okay, we're gonna just have a site where anyone can post videos, or anyone can say what they want, or whatever it might be. And because it was a new phenomenon, even though it wasn't really, it was just media in you know, social context, let's say. But there's no gatekeepers. That's why everything sucks now, because you had people in the publishing industry, you had people in the film industry, you had people in the in newspaper publication fields. Like, there was a control basically, and you could argue that it's a good thing that there's been a democratization of it all. I would beg to differ, because the average person doesn't know where their arsehole is. So to give them the power of technology, even I feel embarrassed that I can do this shit at times, because it's like, do I have any authority to do this? No. It's only my own hubris and need for attention that drives me to it, because we're in such a lacking society nowadays where it's like you can't even afford to go and drink in a pub because that culture is dead. You can't even do anything there either. You can't smoke. You can't you can't even get too drunk. If you're too drunk, they won't serve you. So it's like there's no socialization. So you're forced online wherever you go. I mean, look around. I live near a park, and I walk past it quite frequently, and I just look at it, and it's this vast empty bank most of the time. There's nothing happening. People aren't out. People aren't there. You see a few, but they're the exception. You know, they're probably the people who've like, oh, you know, I've just spent 2-3 weeks just online, so I'll go and shoot some hoops, or kick a ball around, or throw a frisbee or whatever, and yeah, and then I'm getting in touch with nature. And that's it. You know, there's no. Whereas back in my day, when I was growing up, they'd always be packed. You know, there'd be hundreds, if not thousands, of people there. Nowadays, it's lucky if you. I'd be surprised if there was even 100 people at this park in particular, and this is a big fucking park. Like it's beyond a park, really. It's more of a vast stretch of land that goes on. You know, there's banks and there's cafes and there's a fucking bike ring kind of place people can ride and all that shit. Basketball courts, tennis courts, ponds, cricket ground, blah blah blah. Dead. There's nothing happening. And it's probably, I would imagine that's the same in most places. Okay, so yeah, social media is bad. Yeah, I know, but you can break it into different categories of why it sucks, I suppose, if you want to. I mean, I think the problem isn't necessarily that the world outside of it has changed that much. It's just neglected. It's abandoned essentially, and you would be far better off quitting it altogether and just trying to live a somewhat normal life. But the problem is that even if you do work as a postman or whatever, there's no benefit in it for you anymore, really. You just, you're working to survive, and that's it. And in that term, it is like, well, why bother, And we all do shit like this to try and cope, basically. I mean, whether it's trying to get some sort of connection or whatever, there is also that thing about it in the back of your mind, thinking, oh, well, I might be able to make a few quid out of this as well. But it's all delusion, Chris Williamson fucking bullshit. Oh, you can make it, dude. Just start drinking matcha tea and read a couple of books a year, improve yourself, atomic fucking habits and all that bollocks. The level of copism or copium is insane. Maybe it was always like that, I don't know, but these days it feels like everything that's suggested is, it's always about you. That's the thing, it's always about you. You have to take personal responsibility and take life by the balls and mindfulness shit and stuff like that. But really, all of these phenomena only really arose, let's say, or took kind of limelight because you can't really adapt to this way of living because our brains don't work in this minute by minute update every fucking 30 seconds type of criteria. It doesn't work like that. Like, we don't really, consciousness is too dreamlike to cope with that. I mean, unless you're particularly vastly intelligent, but even then it's like you still need shelter and socialization and comfort, intimacy, rest, things like that, whereas everything online is already dead. I mean, not to shit on the anti-natalism thing, but I think a lot of the reason it has gained some sort of popularity is because we are in a death cult society as it is. So it's like you've clocked it. You've realised, like, oh, yeah, it's because the things we idolise are all dead. When you look back at like the things that are even the things that are rehashed, it's something that was made in the past, but you're also watching it from a perspective where it was made 3, 4, 5 months, if not years ago. And even the sense of having it as an object, it's like every object we have computers, whatnot. Like it's a dead thing. It's a death cult we're already in, which probably explains the fall of populations and whatnot. It's like the life isn't celebrated, really. It's certainly not admired, I suppose. But you could even blame religion for this as well. I mean, like, most religions are all about, oh yeah, this life sucks, but as long as you're a good boy or girl, in the next life you'll be fine. And it's like, why is that a comfort? It's like, but the fact of the matter is this life still sucks. So it doesn't matter to me or you that in this supposed other life. I mean, every marketing of heaven as well is always like, if you think about it too much, it's like it goes completely against your human instinct. It's like the only so I'm going to be in a place where everything's fine, my loved ones are all there, everything's always the same, I can always get what I want. That's also a version of hell. You know, it's like, be careful what you wish for types of things. It's not going to be as satisfying without the suffering and all that kind of stuff. But it can't really it can't sell you on it. And even if you think it does, it's just another version of cope, really. I have a feeling this kind of sounds negative. But I don't actually mean for it to do that. I think it's more, you need to just find your way of dealing with it, but also know yourself well enough to think, okay, I might want to just bone, for instance, or whatever, but that's always temporary. It's ephemeral. It's like there's no hope overall. I mean, you're fucked either way. But I don't know. I mean, maybe getting dumber as a society and a species, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Maybe that's what we really strive for in the Nietzsche's last man type of thing. It's like probably better to be a retard in the long run, because at least then you're not going to contemplate why. You're just happy to be alive, and that's it. I don't know. I don't know what the cutoff is. I suppose, I mean, heaven can only really ever be what, I suppose, what you imagine life is. I think what people are thinking is that it's kind of like consciousness, but anything you think of can just happen. And yeah, so you can just imagine like, oh, it's 100 virgins and I'm here and there's no responsibility. I don't have to be culpable for my actions. I can do what I want. Heaven. Which basically would mean that heaven is being God, right? But also at the same time, you're still satisfied by your own limitation. I don't know. There's something really paradoxical about the whole notion of it. Because it kind of means that you're content with your own decision. And yet, if you're totally alone with that, surely that is hellish. That's why I think mainlanders, I think it was, like, notion of like God or the Big Bang was God committing suicide. That's why we all have that kind of small, I don't know, simulacrum or whatever of godliness. Let's say it's there. It's almost like, oh, I feel like I can control my environment, but I can't move shit with my mind. It's a relic of God. It's like a, wow. like a market version of it, I suppose, like a shitty old. And that might be why some people have a bigger capacity for it and they can influence things better ish, but they're still trapped. Oh yeah, Christ is Jew. I mean, maybe that's why I'm talking about it. He's speaking through me. That's what he's doing. He's I mean, maybe this is where I should take the streams, because at least I get interaction. If I'm fucking reviewing books, which is what apparently people wanted. I mean, that's the other thing is like, yeah, be careful what you wish for. Most of the time when you get it, it's like, oh, fucking hell. Now I have to actually. Anyway, I'm just waffling on here. Like I know what I'm fucking talking about. So I think I'm going to smoke one final cigarette and fuck the right off. I will probably do a Christmas thing, because, you know, why not? I have seen Conclave and I enjoyed it quite a lot. The ending was a bit modern, I suppose, but I thought it worked. You know, I mean, it's very easy to judge shit when the surrounding social commentary is also of the same ilk. But in terms of the movie and what it was delving into and all of that, I thought a lot of it worked really well. I thought, you know, pacing, tension, blah blah blah, they're all really good. I did slightly wonder, like, am I only interested in this because I haven't really seen this type of thing before when it comes to the, you know, decision of making a pope? Like, it's also interesting because you're kind of supposedly seeing the ins and outs of all of that kind of stuff, and it's like, yeah, that's quite intriguing. But yeah, overall I'd say it was quite a strong film. I think Ralph Fiennes carries it a lot, but overall it's a good movie, definitely. Brutal, but true. I mean, one of the other things I would also say about social media is, is it actually, it's not a good thing to have access to your own development. It really isn't. It's there's a reason why your memory sucks. It's better to just, you know, you have experiences, you move on, that's it. Whereas the internet can hold you accountable for shit that you said, you know, half drunk on a fucking stream, and you don't even remember saying it, you know. And yet, because of the way the system works these days, I mean, it's preposterous when you see a lot of women coming forward, oh yeah, this dude also tried to fucking tap me up this time and all of this 20 years ago. 20 fucking years ago. 20 years ago, like, you can't. We already know this as well. From a neuroscientific perspective, it's studied that you can't fucking remember, basically. of course, there is such a thing as memory and incidents that happen, but the way we process them and whatnot, like it's totally absurd that you would allow this to be justifiable in general. Totally fucking mental. But here we are. Apparently we can recall things with as much accuracy as the fucking internet can. And it's like, of course you can't. And it's a fucking good thing that you can't, because if you literally record everything as it happens, you probably go insane way quicker. To the point of, like, you know, suicidality. Never never mind just like insanity. It's a good question, actually. If you have anything you want on there, yeah, send it to me email wise beforehand, because I'll probably do it Christmas Eve. I don't know for sure at the moment, but yeah, most likely I'll do it Christmas Eve because I've got nothing better to do. I'll probably start a bit earlier just because I feel like, why not? Let's just chill. We're just hanging out and we're watching bollocks, so let's just do it that way. So I'm going to predict a 6 o'clock start, maybe in and around that time. Probably go on till 10, maybe midnight. I don't know. I don't just want to watch bollocks, but well, that's likely all we're going to be doing. So yeah, let's do that. So I'll say as a first come first serve. I mean, Painbow won that on the spin the wheel, so that will definitely be watched. I am intrigued to watch the Critical Drinkers film because I think it could be funny, and I'm deliberately avoiding shit surrounding that because but I might also just get irritated by it and skip or whatever. But yeah, I mean, if there's any, there was that Never Give Up guy has been putting out some vids that are quite interesting recently about how it sucks being a man now that his wife is pregnant and all this kind of stuff. So I find that quite amusing. But aside from that, I mean, I'm not really going to plan it out or anything. So well, I don't want to leave you hanging. Yeah, I did. I briefly saw it, and it was a very, very nice analogy to what you read. I mean, you get good traction, I'd say, on Goodreads. Maybe you should open a Medium account and just put your reviews on there. I've done that a little bit. And it does. I think if I was more consistent with that, I'd get a bigger following. But I mean, I think you must have written quite a lot of reviews, so you might as well just fucking throw them on there. You might make a bit of dollar or get a following. I mean, yeah, it's a Christmas stream, so I mean, you can keep that in mind if you want. But I kind of think of it as a, you know, Charlie Booker weekly wipe where you can go through the year. Maybe that would be the theme, or just kind of bring up a few things to do with that. Have a bit of a laugh. It would basically be this, but with vids, maybe. But yeah, alright, maybe just throw at me whatever you want. But make sure, or try to bear in mind, that it should be pretty entertaining from the off, let's say. It doesn't matter the length, really. I'll make a slight schedule for it, but overall I'm just going to be getting drunk, so consistency. Yeah, it's my problem these days, but whatever. I've been consistent with these book reviews, and look where that's got me. I mean, I need to be consistent in a way that I'm content with being, and that's fucking hard. I'm trying to work it out. Well, whatever. We'll leave it at that. Yeah, I'll see you on Christmas Eve, I suppose. I think that's going to be the next one. If you have anything you want to be featured, if you want to send me a message, whether it's video or audio, telling me I'm a prick or just wishing me happy Christmas, please do so. Yeah, I'll throw all of this shit together and hopefully we'll just have a bit of a laugh. If none of you send any Christmas related things, I'll try to find something that's somewhat Christmas related, and then I can pass it off as, oh, this is just a Christmas stream. It'll probably be on here, but I might do it on my main channel just because I haven't put anything out on that for a while, and apparently my reach is bigger there, so yeah, why not? And that's it. Medium, yeah, it's an Amazon owned kind of news thing. Just yeah, Google it. It's very easy. You can just copy and paste your shit, and maybe you can add a few images or gifs if you want. Just layer it out. It's easy. I've thrown a few of my YouTube scripts and reviews and all that kind of stuff on there, and I did notice that a few of them started to get a bit more attention. But considering I've probably only put about 20 things on there or something, like it's not a lot. But if you were doing it quite a lot, and then I think through Stripe, I think it's called, you might start to be able to monetize it. I mean, obviously it's not going to be a lot. I mean, the other thing you could do if you were really interested in doing it is just take your scripts, get an AI voice to read it, and then throw it on a video. You could do a YouTube channel probably, and just do that. But when I say you can make money out of it, I mean you probably make about $50 a year, but who knows? I mean, I think a lot of the time it is about you just keep doing it. You could get a lot more. Right, yeah, well. Merry Christmas, motherfuckers. I'll see you soon. fucking realist, real man, antenatal dude. Send me an email if you're still watching. Yeah, no stream. I'm not going to suggest a book because fuck it, I can't be arsed. Basically, I've got other shit going on. Yeah, that's... read whatever you want for Christmas, basically. I'll see you soon. Take care. And yeah, don't die, maybe.